Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel in the lion's den. Do you know Daniel? Do you know the story of Daniel? Let me give you a quick summary. Daniel was someone who prayed 3 times a day. He would sit in his room, open the window, and pray over the city, pray over everything, because he had a view of Jerusalem, right? And this was his standard practice. Day in, day out, he would pray, right? And there came a time where the king who ruled over the city at the time was convinced by his fellow advisors that he should implement a law that whoever does not bow down to a statue of him should be thrown in the lion's den. So fast forward, what had happened was Daniel, out of everyone else, did not bow down to the statue of this king. And the reason he didn't is because he knew he serves one king, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. And because he didn't bow down to it, the king had liked Daniel, but his advisors reminded him, no, but you instituted this law and we have to follow it. So they threw Daniel in the lion's den. And throughout an entire evening, going into the morning, those lions did not touch Daniel. Daniel was unharmed. And I'm not talking 1 or 2 lions. There was over 5 lions in the den, right? But they did not touch Daniel. Now, there's a few lessons to learn from this. First and foremost, there's times we face opposition. But opposition isn't a problem. Opposition is an opportunity for us to experience God's goodness. Why do I say this? And how do we get it right? When we pray, there's so much power in our prayers. There's so much power in everything that we pray and trust God for. When we decide to not look at our opposition and focus on our opposition, but to focus on how big our God is. And if you have just one time, just one, and I'm sure there's more, where you've experienced God come through for you, where you were trusting God for something and it came through for you, something as simple as you praying for God's protection as you're driving or while you handled your day and He's protected you. I want you to understand that that is not because of who you are, it's because of God's goodness. It's because God has answered your prayer. Now what I want to remind you is there's nothing that we cannot pray about. In everything that we do, we have an opportunity to pray about something or to stress over something. We can let the opposition win. How do we do that? We let the opposition win by staying quiet, by choosing not to pray, by choosing not to trust God. At the end of the day, we are created in the image of God. There's power that God has placed within us when we choose to trust Him. And it's activated, watered, and blooms when we choose to trust Him. So what is it in your life today that you can trust God with, that you've been trusting yourself with, but you know it's something you need to surrender to God? Because the lions in your life cannot touch you when you're someone who prays daily. So I encourage you, pray today, even if it's only for 30 seconds, even if it's only for 1 minute, but pray, trust God. Because the lions in your life, what the enemy intended for evil, God will turn into your good. Just because you have a life where you pray. Praying is not just getting down on your knees in particular. Praying is having a conversation with God, venting to God, telling Him what's on your mind, but then finding a verse that gives you a promise of victory and using that verse, standing on that verse, instead of standing on your worry, instead of standing in anxiety. At the end of the day, there's nothing that we can't trust God with. And I believe wholeheartedly that God will give you the breakthrough. God will make sure those lions don't touch you. The lions in your life that the enemy intended to harm you, God will turn into your good. How did God turn it into good for Daniel? The lions never touched him. And the king ran to the den. First thing in the morning, he woke up early in the morning, ran to the den, and he asked Daniel, Daniel, are you there? Has your God forsaken you? And Daniel spoke back to him, and he was shocked. He was amazed, and he realized the God that you serve, Daniel, the God that you serve is clearly the King of Kings. And that king gave his life to God. So everything that you're facing is not just beneficial for you, because when you choose to pray and trust God through it all, God can use it to impact the lives of others. So pray today. Have a beautiful one.